and I didn't even bother to write his name down because I would just butcher it anyways. The blind Asian guy was fantastic.
It's Donnie Yen.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, super hard to pronounce. You're just too lazy to look it up. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, a nerd culture podcast that discusses nerddom through various segments. My name is Tyler Hunt, and I'm with my co-host, as always, Pat Kuhn. How are you, Pat?
I'm good, man. After a couple of months of trying, I actually finally got my Pokemon Go Plus. So that was exciting. I
was wondering what that was.
Yeah.
This whole time you've been talking about wanting a Pokemon Go Plus. And I'll be honest, I don't know what the fuck that is. So I just kind of like nod and say like, oh yeah, man, it sucks that you can't get that. But I saw you posted a picture and I see you're wearing it now. So
yeah, it's quite the fashion statement.
Yeah, it's a good thing you're already married.
That was a low blow, man.
I mean, I don't really have a lot of room to talk. Like I have an entire room like you do dedicated to my nerd stuff that would detract most females, but I don't wear it proudly on my wrist, I guess.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. I haven't really got to play much with it because I got it this afternoon after I got home from work, and I'm actually really excited about it to mess with it while I'm at work, because most of my Pokemon Go stuff has been, I don't go out like purposely to play very often anymore. They have like these streaks where if you go to a Pokestop 7 days in a row, or you catch a Pokemon 7 days in a row, you get a ton of shit. So I try to hit those marks. But other than that, I'm really just kind of hatching eggs while I walk around at work. And so I'm really looking forward to kind of trying this out while I do that, because it's going to save me a lot of battery. And you're smirking as I'm telling this story.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
You're really bumming me out right now.
I'm sorry. No. Yeah. I mean, it's so cold out. I was wondering how Pokemon Go would fare when this weather. I mean, last episode I said it was colder than a witch's tit. I mean, now it's like almost colder than a warlock's dick. So I just can't imagine that many people are out walking around trying to catch Pokemon. I don't know, but I mean, I know they just released new ones, right? So,
sort of. They finally released Ditto, and they've been talking about releasing some other ones like Gen 2 Pokemon, which will be fun. They have they did a Halloween and a Thanksgiving event, and they're currently in the Christmas event, and I use event in quotes because basically the only part of the event that I can see is they just put a fucking Santa hat on Pikachu, and so you can catch a Pikachu with a Santa hat, but it's still a really shitty Pikachu, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
It just, people were kind of losing their shit about it, and I mean, apparently Niantic came out and said that Pikachu will keep the Santa hat after the event, but still, it's the same shitty Pokemon, so I don't know.
Well, the whole Santa hat kind of loses its appeal in February as well. It's like, I don't really want to see that again until December.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's something that I kind of not the Santa hat and the Pikachu. I'm definitely not looking forward to that. No, I've been wanting one for a while now, and I'm just excited that I finally got one.
Do you have did you catch a Ditto yet?
I have caught a Ditto, yes.
Well, that's kind of like lackluster. Like they release it and then you can catch them right away, or it.
Yeah,
right away.
It was. It's weird because I think it was just an excuse because they knew that people weren't catching the rats and the Pidgeys anymore, and so basically for our listeners that don't know, Ditto is basically the Pokemon that can change into any other Pokemon, and so what you have to do to catch one is you have to catch a rat or a Pidgey, and then when you catch it, it turns into a Ditto, and it's like, congratulations, you caught this.
Oh,
and it's
okay.
not even that strong of a Pokemon.
Yeah.
So I caught one just to catch one, so now I have one. And occasionally I'll catch a rat and a Pidgey here and there, just so maybe I can catch another one, but really, I mean, it's not a very strong Pokemon to begin with. So, yeah, I'm not really gonna go out of my way to try to catch another one.
Cool.
All right, so we normally start each episode not talking about Pokemon Go, but just kind of checking in with each other. Tyler and I have big boy jobs, and we don't really get to have these nerdy conversations as much as we'd like to. We call this first segment What We're Into. So what are you into this week?
So I'm going to do something a little different, and I didn't run this by you at all before we started recording.
Cool.
So you could, this could totally piss you off, but I doubt it will. We always do our Shocktober recap, and we talk about some of the highlights of our Shocktober viewings, and it's a big part of our nerddom, and it's become a big part of the podcast in October. I've gone on record of saying, like, I kind of do something similar in December, not to the extent that we do it in October.
Sure.
Like, I don't necessarily watch like a different Christmas movie every day, but there are quite a few Christmas movies that I try to watch from, December 1st to December 25th. And I've kind of been doing that, and I've watched some new stuff. I watched some stuff that's out in theaters. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of run down some of the things I've watched and give some cliff notes on a couple of them.
Okay. I will say that I'm not going to be pissed as long as you have a clever title for it. We have Shocktober in October. As long as you have a clever pun, I'm cool with it.
You know what's funny is I spent, I'll be honest, like 15 seconds, not very long at all. But I tried to think of a clever title, and the best I could get, and I'm hesitant to even say it because it's so fucking dumb, but it's what I brainstormed after 15 seconds was Chris Simber. It's just super bad. So let's just pretend like that.
I can't imagine the person that came up with the title Nerd Favorite could come up with a shitty pun.
All right, so the first thing that I kind of started the season off was actually the weekend of Black Friday. I went and saw Bad Santa 2, which I don't know how much of a fan you are of the first one, but I really enjoy the first one, and that's become a movie I watch every holiday season. Like, it constantly, every year it makes me laugh, and I discover little nuances about it that I think are hilarious. I actually watched Bad Santa 1 a couple days ago, and just enjoyed it as much as ever. Unfortunately, Bad Santa 2 is not quite the caliber as Bad Santa 1. I mean, some people would argue Bad Santa 1 isn't really that high of a caliber, but
yeah, I'm not a fan.
You're not. Then definitely don't watch Bad Santa 2 because it basically, I mean, I laughed. Like, there are crude jokes, and crude jokes are going to make me laugh, but that doesn't necessarily make it a great movie. And it just lacks the heart of the original, and kind of the salvation the character finds at the end is just kind of shit away in this movie, and it ends on a sour note. So I don't know. It's not awful. Like I said, I laughed, but I wouldn't recommend it. The one I watched after that was The Santa Claus, which is a movie I haven't watched. I haven't watched The Santa Claus since I was a kid, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, it held up all right. Like
No, it doesn't.
It held up all right.
No, it doesn't.
Like, yeah, it does.
No,
when
it
was
doesn't.
the last time you watched The Santa Claus?
2 days ago.
Really? That's interesting.
Yes, and it doesn't hold up at all.
That's because your heart is 3 sizes too small.
My favorite Christmas special is The Grinch. So what bothers me about that movie is his ex-wife writes a letter a week the entire year. Why the fuck doesn't her parents intercept one of those letters and get her the goddamn game she wanted?
I don't know.
Why?
Maybe her parents were alcoholics. Then Disney didn't want to go there.
I don't know. If Santa Claus is real, then why do the parents still get him gifts? Continue. It doesn't hold up, but continue.
Christmas magic. No, the one thing I will say about that movie though is, like, watching it as an adult, them thinking that something's like psychologically wrong with Charlie. Like, it gets a little darker than I remember. Like, it's not super dark. It's a fucking Disney movie, but yeah, like, them taking him to a shrink because he believes in Santa Claus is a little weird to me. But, I don't know. I'm not going to run through every single thing I watch. I did end up finding that Garfield Christmas special we talked about a couple episodes, a nerd favorite, and I really enjoyed watching that again. I watched The Night Before, which I saw for the first time last year when it was released in theaters.
Still haven't gotten to
I'm
that
surprised
yet.
you haven't got to that because it has your boy in it, the hyphen.
Yeah.
But Seth Rogen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Anthony Mackie. It fell a little short of my expectations, but it's still pretty funny. Brittany and I went and saw Office Christmas Party as well. That was not great.
Yeah, I haven't heard good things. It looked really funny, and then the reviews started coming out, and I try not to let that affect me, but I was kind of on the fence anyways, and generally that's what kind of pushes it in either direction. Yeah, so it was almost like Bad Santa 2. Like, I did laugh, and there were really funny parts, but at the end of the day, that didn't make it a good movie. Like, the story it told wasn't very good. So even though I did laugh and I did find there's some enjoyment there, I don't think it's going to become like something I watch every year by any means. The rest of it is stuff that I've seen before. There is one thing I want to talk about that I don't think holds up, that is considered a Christmas classic. And that is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like the classic claymation. Never seen it. Okay. So if you watched it now as an adult, you would be like, what the fuck is this? I believe it was made in the 60s, and it's kind of one of those things everybody knows. They show it every year on TV, and it's become like a staple in the Christmas tradition. And I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, and I figured I'd give it a shot. And that movie, I don't want to say it's a piece of shit because people out there love it, but like Santa is a big dick in that movie. So Rudolph is born and he has this nose, right? Everybody knows the fucking song. And he is treated just like a piece of shit for having a red nose, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Does he have to sit on the back of the bus? No, but it kind of feels that way, and the fact that it was put out in like the early 60s, even more so. Yeah. So they make him like cover up his red nose with like this little black nose, and the biggest takeaway from it is when Santa finds out he actually has a red nose, he kind of flips his shit, and he's like, "Get that kid out of here!" Yeah. And I don't know, man. It just did not sit right, and I don't think I'll ever watch that movie again for the rest of my life unless I have kids maybe and they won't like it. But yeah, it did not sit right with me. So that one does not hold up, but I've yet to get to my big staples. So this is the last episode we'll put out before Christmas. Our next episode we'll record before Christmas, but it'll come out the day after. So I do still have like the big ones that I love watching every year, like Home Alone and Christmas Vacation, Christmas Story. I'm kind of saving those for closer to Christmas Day. But so far, Home Alone doesn't hold up either. You're fucking crazy. Cell phones, man. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the ones that I do watch every year and do really enjoy. But I don't know. I would say for you, like out of the ones that I've kind of rambled on about, like I would give The Night Before a try, just because I know that slipped through the cracks. Yeah, that's one that is pretty funny, and it gets a little weird at the end, but it does have some pretty great moments. Cool, man. Cool. So what are you into, dude? I am into a movie, Don't Think Twice. Have you ever heard of this movie? It's ringing a bell, but I don't know of it. It is written and directed by Mike Birbiglia, which I always struggle with his last name. I know what you're talking about now. And he is one of my idols. I love his comedy. He's a stand-up comedian. And just the way his style of comedy, if you don't know, is he just kind of tells this, it's like long form storytelling, but he has this way of telling stories where he almost kind of breaks them down and he sprinkles in jokes here and there, but there's this whole long story. And so I really love his stand up, and I look up to him. Like I always say, like I do dabble in stand up. I don't expect it to come to anything, but if I could just have his career, like I don't want to be super famous. I just kind of want to do what he does. He does theater shows, and that would be really cool. And he gets to do these indie movies, and that would be kind of my dream to do stuff like that. But anyways, what do you consider our movie to be? That's about as indie as it gets. I mean, when you shoot it with like $90 camera. Yeah, it's pretty much super, super indie, like as indie as you could get. But anyways, this movie is about a long-running improv group that must deal with the loss of one of its members when that member books Weekend Live, which is obviously Saturday Night Live. They don't even hide it. Literally, they're watching it at one point, and they're doing the intros, and it's Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Like, for sure. But it's just that fictional universe is Saturday Night Live. And Mike Birbiglia is also in it. He doesn't necessarily star in it, but it has a really great cast. I think I just wanted to like this movie because it was him so much that my expectations were really high. Tyler and I do an episode each year. We'll be doing it shortly within the next month or so with Matt Hurt from The Obsessive Viewer, where we do our top 10 movies of the year. And I almost was like saving a spot for this movie because I knew I was going to like it. I just assumed that it was going to be one of those movies that I was just going to fall in love with because it's him. And it just seemed like the perfect movie for him to write and direct. It just wasn't what I expected it to be because he is so funny. But looking back on it, I should have known because the way he tells jokes and the way he tells stories, it's almost, you're kind of laughing at his pain. He's like super awkward and he makes things awkward, even more awkward. And you're kind of laughing at that. Like he's not a very good grown up and he just kind of makes silly mistakes and stuff like that. So you're kind of laughing at his pain. The way he tells stories, you kind of root for him, but you also are laughing at him. This movie is super, super depressing. Like, it's not as funny as you would think. I mean, he's a stand-up comedian. He's one of the funniest people that I've ever seen. And it's not that funny. There are parts when they're doing their improv that is really, really funny. But most of this was kind of one of those movies that it reminded me of how I felt when I was watching Take This Waltz.
Oh, yeah.
Tyler and I have talked a lot about this. We're both, I wouldn't necessarily describe us as newlyweds anymore. I made it sound like we were married. Oh, there's nothing wrong with that.
We were both newly married to other separate women when we watched this movie together.
Yes.
Take This Waltz, that is.
And that movie, if you're not familiar with it, is basically just how this marriage breaks down. And what scared me the most about this particular movie is Seth Rogen's character. He literally does nothing wrong. It's just like they kind of like, they not necessarily fall out of love, but they kind of just drift apart. And that's frightening to me, being a person that's only been married for, I should know this off the top of my head. It's coming up on 4 years. So,
there you go.
Yeah. So, it was the same type of fear, like, because I do dabble in stand-up and I try other things, YouTube, podcasts, obviously. And it's just basically about these people that have put so much time and effort into this one thing, and only like 3% of these people are ever going to make it to do what they want to do with it. And it's just about their failure and how kind of this was their one thing. And if they don't make it at this one thing, then they're just grocery clerks and stuff like that. Like, if they don't have improv or they don't have stand-up or whatever it is, they're just this loser that has nothing. Yeah. And it was just one of those movies that just scared the shit out of me. Because if I don't have stand-up and I don't have the podcast, then I just work at a plastics company. And it just, that scares the shit out of me. So, it was just kind of like that same type of fear. And yeah, it was a super bummer. I don't blind buy things very often anymore because I'm married now and we have bills to pay and stuff like that. So I don't blind buy much. And I kind of wish I had just rented this. Because this is the first thing that I've blind bought in a really long time just because it's him. And I like the fact that I have it in my collection because it is him. But I don't know if I'll ever feel like watching this again. Because it was a good movie. but it's not something that I'd want to watch again because it is like that gut punch type of movie.
I mean, yeah, there's two different types of sad movies. There's like, so I've talked about Time before, and that I would consider to be a somewhat sad movie in parts, but it's still a really enjoyable watch and you get something out of it. Whereas a movie like what you're saying, with that or with Take This Waltz, it's a sad movie, but I think gut punch is the right word.
Yeah.
It's just a little too real,
Yeah.
and a little too close to home and a little too uncomfortable. So I could definitely see not wanting to ever watch that again.
Yeah. So, it won't make my top 10 for sure. It is not a bad movie. I would definitely suggest watching it because it does have some moments that are really, really funny, and it is a well put together movie, well written, everything, but it's not a movie that I'd ever watch again, or I feel like I ever want to experience again, because it felt like I got beat down a little bit.
Yeah, that's a bummer considering like how into that guy you are.
For sure. That was a weird way that you put that. Anyways, our next segment is just plainly called Comics. We read a ton of comics each week, and Tyler and I like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
I read a new graphic novel called Kill Them All, which is the newest graphic novel that was written, drawn, and lettered by Kyle Starks, who he wrote Sex Castle, which I've talked about on the podcast before, and he's currently the ongoing writer for the Rick and Morty comic put out by Oni. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's ONI. It's a comic publisher that puts that comic out. So he is currently writing Rick and Morty. But basically, he had done a Kickstarter over the summer. I believe it was up in either August or September. And you could put in for his Kickstarter. What was cool was that whenever he started the Kickstarter, the book was already written. So you were basically donating to helping him publish it and get it out. But he's, if you ordered the PDF file of the comic, as soon as the Kickstarter was done, you got it because the book was already done. You weren't, pitching in for him to write it.
Yeah.
Like it was ready to go. He just kind of needed the funds to get it out there. So I ended up it came with the book, as well as some postcard stickers, a bookmark, like a little mini comic. And then what I was really excited about was it has a hand-drawn character from the book by him on like the inside cover, or one of the inside couple pages, which was pretty awesome to see. He ended up raising almost $24,000 on his $10,000 goal.
Cool, man.
So very successful. I think it had about 700 backers. So, his fan base is growing. Sex Castle is immensely popular, and it's been optioned for a movie by the guys who made Workaholics. So I've raved about Sex Castle before and how great that was and how much people should read it. So now I'm going to talk about Kill Them All, which is about 108 pages, I think. So it's a bit of a thicker graphic novel, but the way it's written is it's a really easy read. I think I read it in probably a half hour, 45 minutes. Like, it's not too bad at all. What I like about Starks' writing is that the hilarity of his writing just hits home with me. It's the stuff I love. Like I talked about in my top 10 TV shows, the reason I loved Rick and Morty was because that kind of humor played to me. And the fact that he's writing the Rick and Morty comic, I think kind of translates to that. So he doesn't necessarily write on the show, but he's able to write the Rick and Morty stories so well and so much like that comedy because they're so similar. So that's, I think, why I like his writing so much. It's just so on point. This particular book, Kill Them All, is about this guy who is an ex-cop and then this woman who is a rogue assassin, and they're fighting their way through a 20-story building trying to get to the top of this skyscraper. And to get to the top of the skyscraper, they have to kill them all. So every level's like a different group of bad guys, and they're trying to get to the main guy at the top. It's almost like it's just like a video game. Yeah, like a retro video game. The cop is doing it because if he solves this case and gets to the top, then he'll get back on the force. And the rogue assassin is doing it because she's betrayed at the beginning of the book, and she's trying to get her revenge, which would be killing the guy at the top. This book is, like I said, it's hilarious, and it's a great throwback. Like Sex Castle was a throwback to like 80s action movies. This movie's kind of a throwback. He says like to the mid 90s dungeon crawl is how he compares it. in his Kickstarter, he described this book as being, quote, full of high-octane excitement, kicks, murders, and two people trying to find their own identity and self-worth. And that's exactly what it is. There is a little bit of heart there, but at its core, it's kind of a fun, cheesy, hilarious story with these characters. I'm not sure when this book's going to end up being available, like at your brick and mortar store or online. It might already be available online, but I do highly recommend it when it comes out, as well as Sex Castle, like I said, and any of Starks' other work that you can get your hands on. He's really talented, and he makes me laugh out loud every time I read his books, and I think that he's going to be bringing a lot to the comic world as he continues to publish his own stuff.
Cool, man. I actually saw that you had posted this when you came over. You had mentioned that this is what you're going to talk about. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've never heard of that. And then as soon as you started talking, I was like, oh, yeah, that's what he posted on Facebook. And I remember you talking about Sex Castle and how much you really liked it. And it was one of those things that sounded really fun and something that I wanted to read. And I just never got around to it because we read so much. But this sounds even more up my alley.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely have to check it out for sure.
Yeah, it's honestly, I would say Sex Castle is probably funnier.
Oh, really?
But Kill Them All it's a lot more fun, if that makes sense. So I would definitely check them both out. I think Sex Castle is probably more readily available right now. But
for sure.
What'd you read this week, dude?
I read, well, I'm trying to get caught up on a few books. So obviously I'm not going to talk about that because I'm like 10 issues behind on a couple of these books.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about something that just came out. We've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast. Reborn number 3 came out this week. It is written by Mark Millar and drawn by Greg Capullo, which artist and writer we've talked about before. We both really enjoy, especially Greg Capullo's work on Batman Before Rebirth. This book, man, I know we've talked about it before, but I can't stress enough how it's, after 3 issues, quickly becoming like my favorite book.
Yeah, that's great.
What this issue did, it's almost like a kid. Like, what do you want to draw? Like your fantasy as a kid, what do you want to draw? Well, I want to draw a dragon with a lion's head, and that's in this issue. It's so cool. And the way he draws it is just, I mean, he's fantastic. It's ridiculous how good he is. And just the way he draws everything. And it's really cool. What's good about this issue is it doesn't give you a ton of mythology. The first couple of issues gave you a little bit more of that. And this issue is, the first 2 issues we got to see most of the, I guess, the good side, and then you have the bad side. They don't call it heaven and hell, but there's like this good area, and then there's this bad area. And we got to see a little bit more of the bad area, this particular issue. And the cliffhanger, man, I cannot wait for the 4th issue. I think it's going to be so cool. Our hero, Bonnie, is kind of finally figuring it out, and she gets to have a bit of a moment in issue number 3. And so I'm kind of excited to see where that takes them. But, yeah, I love this book so much. It's exactly what I wanted from it.
Yeah, I picked up issue 3, obviously, but I haven't read it yet. So, whenever I get into my stack that I bought this week, that'd be the first thing I read, because I think that, as much as I love All-Star Batman and some of the other ongoing comics that I'm reading right now, sure, I think Reborn's probably my favorite. It's just so original and fun, and the art's amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's great.
All right, dude, you ready for some nerd news?
Yeah, what do you got this week?
All right, so this first one I wanted to bring up because I think it is fucking hilarious. So we live in a world where there are going to be competing Jekyll and Hyde movies coming out.
Yes.
Did you see this shit? So Chris Evans is being tapped to star in a film called Jekyll that's going to be directed by the director of Zombieland. I'm going to mess up his name, but it's Ruben Fleischer. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but basically it's based on a 2007 BBC series where he's not necessarily Jekyll. He's a descendant of Jekyll. that is starting to exhibit the split personalities, and he runs away from his family.
Because they always have to put their own little stupid spin on it.
Exactly. And, he starts to, so whenever he's one personality, he doesn't remember what the other personality's done. And it sounds fucking terrible. But not only that, there's another Jekyll and Hyde movie being developed that I didn't realize was in development with Russell Crowe, which is is by Universal. So it's going to be part of like their Universal Monster Universe movie that is starting with The Mummy that just had a trailer released a couple weeks ago. Both of these movies sound like complete garbage. So I just think that's fucking hilarious, that we have not only one bad Jekyll and Hyde movie coming out, but there will be two.
It always seems like it works that way, because we had that with Snow White.
Yeah.
And we had the two really shitty Snow White movies. And it's just like, I get why they do it, because they're properties that people know.
Yeah.
I mean, they have that name recognition, but there's no way in an era of Marvel Cinematic Universe and DC Cinematic Universe and all these really popular characters that a movie about Jekyll and Hyde is gonna get people on the seats. There's just no fucking way, especially when there's two of them.
Yeah, I bet that they bomb.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, that Frankenstein movie came out last year, right, with James McAvoy and Daniel Radcliffe, and that movie bombed.
Unfortunately, because Max Landis wrote it.
Did you ever see it?
No, I didn't. I actually watched American Ultra a little bit ago, and I'm watching his TV series, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, and that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I go back and forth on that guy. Like I like his ideas, and I like a lot of the stuff he says, but he's also kind of a tool bag. So I kind of go back and forth, but I like his writing. I really do. So I'll have to watch that Frankenstein movie at some point. Yeah. I'm not in a rush to by any means, but considering he was attached to it, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did we talk about him doing the American Werewolf in London remake?
I think we mentioned it briefly, yeah.
Are you on board with that?
I don't like the fact that they are remaking it, but I feel like a lot of the times with these big movies that I don't necessarily feel like that movie's untouchable, but there's certain movies like Rocky Horror that they unfortunately remade that I wouldn't necessarily describe them as untouchable. I just don't feel like they need to be remade, and I just don't feel like this movie needs to be remade. But if anybody's gonna do it, he's really the only one that kind of has the right to redo it.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with it in that sense.
It's literally in his blood.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. This next one was one of the bigger stories of the week, I suppose. So ever since Suicide Squad came out, they've been talking about this Harley Quinn spinoff movie and what was that going to look like, and was Warner Brothers going to go ahead with it. And not only has it kind of been announced now, it's kind of got a working title and a director. So it's going to be a Gotham City Sirens movie, which has always kind of been Harley, Catwoman, and Poison Ivy. And David Ayer, who directed Suicide Squad, is going to direct it, which I was surprised to hear because there was those rumblings of there being studio conflict with him on Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's so readily available or readily willing to come back to this universe was surprising to me, and makes me think that maybe some of those rumors were blown out of proportion, or they kind of mended their bonds or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know that I wanted to see a Harley Quinn spinoff movie so quick, because I'm more interested in them developing, the classic Harley Quinn character with Joker and Batman, and them being love interests before they kind of split them up like they've done in the comics. But it sounds like it could be kind of a cool female-centric story in the Batman universe, which the Batman universe does have really strong female characters. I would just be interested also to see if they can pull it off. Like, I don't know how easily you pull off Poison Ivy in a universe like this.
Have you heard who they're either? Is it official that they've cast Megan Fox?
I was gonna try to avoid that.
Oh, really?
just to not give you any more ammunition. But yeah, I don't think that they've cast her. But that was the rumor on the internet, was that they were eyeing Megan Fox. And I was talking to a guy at work, and I think that the stigma associated with her is just too much. Like, in Jennifer's Body, like, she can play seductive, and she can play like. like the monster, I guess, the seductive monster. She does it in Jennifer's body, but I don't want to see it. And there's, like I said, there's just a stigma associated with her, and nobody needs that. Like, you have Margot Robbie, who's been in Academy Award nominated films. You know, she's a great actress, and she brought a lot to Harley Quinn. And then you're going to go with somebody, next to her being Megan Fox. I just don't think you can do that.
No, I mean, I kind of agree with a lot of things that you said. I did like Suicide Squad a little bit more. Like, I don't think it should have got shit on as much as it did. It was a fun movie. It wasn't necessarily a good movie. It certainly had its flaws.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big studio movie, and it kind of had the regular speed bumps of the cliche big studio movies, and it had all that, but Harley Quinn was definitely one of the bright spots of that movie. So I'm not upset that they're making this movie, and I completely agree. I mean, the more we can get strong female characters out there, even though they are villains, I still think that's a good thing. But I don't know. I doubt this movie will be any good.
I hope they don't go the route of trying to make them heroes. I hope that they're the antagonists, and then Batgirl is in this as a protagonist, hopefully. And, Batman can show up like he did in Suicide Squad
and then they could have sex.
Let's hope not. But for like a few scenes here or there, and like even Joker, I'm sure, make an appearance. But to maybe like just really focus it on those three characters, possibly Batgirl. I know that a lot of people will probably say Catwoman's been done too many times, but to me, she's not been done the right way yet.
Really?
I mean, Anne Hathaway was great. Halle Berry was awful.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Michelle Pfeiffer was a little too much. I just don't think that they, like, the Arkham Catwoman is the Catwoman I prefer, and the one that's in like the Telltale game that's out right now. That's the Catwoman I want to see. That's more of the cat burglar and kind of like maybe the Catwoman that's in the Hush series. Like, that's what I would like to see them bring to the big screen, and I don't think they've done that yet. So I think there is still some possibility with that character that hasn't been explored yet. Yeah,
for sure. They kind of it's weird because we can't seem to get any middle ground. Like, you have the Tim Burton Catwoman, and then you kind of throw Halle Berry's Catwoman. It's kind of really, really over the top.
Yeah.
And then you have Anne Hathaway, who is, I mean, Christopher Nolan's Batman is more of a down-to-earth kind of as real as you can get those characters to the real world. And there's no middle ground with that character so far in the cinematic universe.
Yeah, so I hope they go that route, but there's no release date or anything, so we will see when that comes out. Speaking of release dates, though, there is a release date for another DC property. Well, not a date, a time frame. So The Batman will probably start filming in 2017's the spring, according to Ben Affleck.
We won't see it until 2018.
So what they're doing is, I guess, Justice League Part 1 comes out next fall, and Justice League Part 2 was supposed to come out the following summer or fall, and they're pushing that back a little bit to make room for the Batman to come out in 2018. So I'm all on board for that. Like, I'm excited for the Justice League, but when it comes down to it, like, I'd take a standalone Batman movie any day over that group of characters. Just my preference. As much as I say I love DC, like, it's just I love standalone Batman stories, so that's what I want to see. So I'm excited. Ben Affleck had this long quote this week before that kind of got announced that, he was taking his time. He wanted to get this right. He didn't want to force it, but it sounds like maybe Warner Brothers doesn't share his enthusiasm right there, so they are kind of trying to force it, it sounds like. So hopefully he has the script where he wants it and he makes the movie he wants to make without too much studio involvement.
Yeah, but I feel like if anybody kind of had the power to drag their feet a little bit, it's him, and they've already come out with him as Batman, so it's not like they can be like, oh, well, you have to do this right now. He can be like, I mean, I don't know what his contract looks like, obviously, but he could be like, yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to recast me?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely making the most money out of anybody.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's the biggest name out of what they have going on right now. So I think that you're right. He does have the weight to throw around there to kind of get what he wants.
For sure.
Last one is, whenever How I Met Your Mother ended, there was a How I Met Your Father in development that wasn't like none of the characters were coming back for it or anything. It was just kind of the same storytelling element in a different show. That got canceled before it got to pilot, and now it looks like it's back in development, a story like that. So I don't know. I was kind of against it whenever they had first announced it when How I Met Your Mother ended. But now that it's kind of been a couple years and we've had a break from that storytelling frame, I could see a show like this being interesting. So
I don't know. I just don't. I think we've had this conversation before. I think studios, we talked about it with Deadpool. Like, we were going to see the string of R-rated action movies or superhero movies. Big companies like TV shows and movie studios, they learn the wrong lesson. How I Met Your Mother is not good because of the concept.
Yeah.
It's unique because of the concept, but it's good because of the writing and the characters and us falling in love with those characters. You can do that and not have the concept. So it's just like they feel like it's going to be a hit because they have this cool concept, but they don't understand that's not why we love the show to begin with.
Yeah. So
I don't really care. And they did so much damage to How I Met Your Mother by the series finale that it's not like it's tarnishing the reputation or anything like that. If they do it, that's fine. I probably won't watch it, but I mean, I don't think it's tarnishing anything.
Yeah, considering it's like completely different characters. Like, if it's awful, like, I don't know, How I Met Your Mother did enough to itself, in my opinion. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they kind of come up with. I'm sure they'll try to go a different route with it, and I'm sure that they will probably not kill off the father at the finale. I would
probably not.
Hope they learn that.
Spoiler alert.
Hope they learn that lesson. But yeah, I guess I should tag a spoiler alert in there. But it's been a few years, like, with the picture. So, anyways, that's all I have for nerd news.
All right, cool, man. Our next segment is just it's a revolving door. It's just our main topic. It changes from episode to episode. We had been doing our top 10 favorite TV shows of all time. We're going to take a little bit of a break from that because it's Star Wars. A Star Wars movie came out. Rogue One, a Star Wars story came out this week. Tyler and I both saw it. We actually saw it the same day, pretty much the same time, different theaters. But that's mostly my fault. But anyways,
because you're selfish.
Yeah, because I'm selfish. But I had been, and I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I have fallen in love with AMC right now. And I love the fact that I can go on there as soon as tickets go on sale for Rogue One. I went, got the tickets, got the seats that I wanted. I mean, I've pre-ordered tickets before for these big showings before. And it's been fine because then I don't have to worry about, because I'm kind of a panicky person when it comes to stuff like this. And so I didn't have to worry about getting there early and making sure it didn't sell out. But not only that, I knew what seats I got. So I didn't have to get there early to get good seats. So I loved it.
Yeah.
They have good recliners, a really nice projector. So I really like AMC. One weird thing happened to me, happened to me and my wife while we were watching this movie. So I went in the first day that you could buy tickets, went in, got back row seats, because the AMC, like, they reduced the amount of seats. So, like, back row seats is like halfway up. Like, it's still really pretty close. It's almost like an IMAX theater at this point. And I got the middle two seats. My wife always complains because I never get the one that has the cup holder in between. So we have to do some adjusting with the cup. But that doesn't matter. Anyways, I digress. But I got the two seats in the middle. And so we got there about 45 minutes early. And so we sat down and we were kind of hanging out, and it was piling in, but our row was completely empty other than the two of us. And I thought, man, I mean, this movie, I mean, it's Star Wars. Like, everybody's going to go see it. I thought it was going to be a lot busier than that. And then like 5 minutes before the movie started, this woman comes in and she goes, she kind of didn't really say it to us, but she kind of said it loud enough we could hear it. She's like, I thought we bought this whole row out. And I of course, I went panicky. Like, did I get the wrong seats or am I wrong? No, I was fine. They had literally bought the entire row except for the 2 seats that we had bought. So we were in the middle of this whole like family fucking reunion, and they were like passing popcorn down to each other. And at one point, I literally, oh my God, I almost punched this dude in the face. So the guy sitting next to me literally got out his cell phone and started scrolling through Twitter.
In the middle of the movie?
Yeah. For like 3 minutes. And I literally went to go say something and my wife grabbed me. And then he, I don't know if he saw me or if he just realized he was being a dick. Like, you're in the back row, and if we hadn't been sitting there, it would have literally been his entire family. That's one thing. I've gone to a movie and got out my phone when I'm in the back row before, but when I was the only person in the back row, like, dude, I'm sitting right fucking next to you. So I was pretty pissed about that.
Yeah. I had a pretty poor movie-going experience last night as well. So I ended up seeing the movie with, Brittany was supposed to go and she ended up deciding she didn't want to. So I went and saw it with my buddy Ryan, who you know, and then, Will, came up from, Bowling Green and saw it. And we got there early. We got really great seats. The news was there, which was weird.
Okay.
Yeah, I may have been on the news last night. I don't know. But, you know, we got great seats, and then the whole row behind us got taken up by, I don't want to say the nerds, because I mean, we're nerds too. Like,
yeah, for sure.
But they were like the annoying nerds that, like, one was dressed up like Kylo Ren and the other was like, another guy was super weird. But anyways, they're right behind us. And the guy that was right behind us through the whole movie, like, was leaning over his seat, like, so his head was like right above us. You know, it's no spoiler that the Death Star's in this movie, and anytime the Death Star would show up, he would make a sound. He would go, "Oh man!"
Yeah,
and he would verbally do that, and he would get so excited in certain scenes, he'd kick our chairs. I thought Will was gonna stand up and punch this guy in the face. Like, he kept turning around and telling him to shut up, and I'm like, "Oh my God, we're gonna have a fight." In the middle of this Star Wars movie. But then Will looked at me and he goes, "I don't know, man. Maybe he's autistic." And I had the same thing. And I'm like, oh shit, I kind of feel bad now. But after the movie, he wasn't autistic. He was just a dick. But, no, like,
I had a kid sitting in the row in front of me that kept like clapping and like throwing his hands up. Like he was on a fucking roller coaster. Yeah, he was for sure. he was on the spectrum for sure.
Yeah, so I mean that's different, but this guy was just being a douche. And the reason I know he was a douche is because I hate to, like, you know, characterize somebody by the person they hang out with, but his friend had the worst rat tail I've ever seen in my life. So the fact that they were friends told me that he was just as douchey as the guy with the rat tail. And like I mean, everybody knows that Darth Vader makes an appearance in this movie. The first scene that Vader is in, I didn't hear most of the dialogue because the guy behind us was going ape shit.
Did you hear the horrible pun?
Yeah, I did hear the pun.
We'll get to it later.
Yeah, but anyways, it wasn't the ideal movie going experience, and once we get into the review, everyone will see that it did not ruin the experience for me by any means, but I'm looking forward to seeing it again without distraction.
Yeah, I'll probably go see it again tomorrow.
Let me know if you go.
All right, cool.
All right, it's a date.
So this movie is directed by Gareth Edwards, who did Godzilla. It stars Felicity Jones and Diego Luna. It's basically, if you don't already know, it's in between episode 3 and 4, but it's basically right up against episode 4. It happens right before the events of episode 4. It's about a group of reluctant rebels who must come together to help steal the plans for a weapon that could tip the scales in favor of the Empire in the war for the galaxy. So we start off each of these reviews by kind of just giving our general overview. We call it broad strokes. So I have a feeling by your little intro which way you went, but broad strokes, how'd you feel about Rogue One
So this is my review, right? Because if people want to know what you thought, they can go and watch our YouTube channel, correct?
No, that was my first impression.
You fucking dick. Anyway, I'm just kidding. No, broad strokes. So, I was excited for this movie, just like, I'm going to forever be excited for any Star Wars movie that's ever going to come out. But for whatever reason, this movie was a little lower on my radar than like episode 7 was. So like
I can see that.
Episode 7 was like the most excited I've been for a movie ever. And while I was really looking forward to this movie, it just didn't carry the same weight for me. Yeah.
Were you disappointed that it didn't have the crawl? Because I know that was for episode 7. Like, I got a little teary eyed.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely missed the crawl.
I understood why they didn't do it. Like, this is a different type of Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
I get why they didn't do the crawl.
I mean, they have to set the standards for all these spinoffs going forward, because not all of the spinoffs are going to be so closely related to one of the original movies.
Yeah.
So,
and this was basically the events of the crawl in the first movie.
Yeah, I watched A New Hope when I got home from work today. I put it on while I kind of prepped for the podcast. And the crawl of that movie, I didn't realize it is like the rebellion just got their first win over the Empire, and I'm like, holy fuck! I just watched that. It was pretty cool.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue with your
but I think part of the reason that I wasn't so excited for this was because I loved Force Awakens so much, and I'm just so concentrated on the future of this saga as opposed to the past. Like, we've seen the prequels, and I didn't expect it to be as nearly as bad as the episodes 1 through 3 were, but I'm more interested in what's going to happen going forward. And I knew, the outcome of the movie, kind of. So I think that kind of made me not as excited. But I gotta say, like, I kind of led on to it. Like, I was amazed watching this movie. It exceeded any and all expectations I had, and accomplished not only what it set out to do, but then some. It's easily the best prequel to the original trilogy out of any that have been made. And in my opinion, it's on par with any Star Wars movie that's ever been created. It caught me by surprise, and it just didn't let up. I loved it.
So we've had this discussion. I don't know if it's on the podcast or just before in our actual friendship outside the podcast. We used to have one of those before the podcast. But and I think this is a conversation that many Star Wars nerds have. What do you watch first? Because chronologically, the prequels obviously happen first, but they're garbage other than Revenge of the Sith. For me, that question's easy. It's you watch the originals first, and then you reluctantly go back if you want to torture yourself and watch the prequels. But for me, this movie was so good that I think that during my rewatch that I do every so often, I think I start with Rogue One and then do the original trilogy.
Like, it's such a good lead in to it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's really good. It's pitch perfect lead into that movie that I completely agree. I think that once we get a few more of these standalones, if they keep up the quality, like, I will have no need for episodes 1 through 3 anymore.
No.
Like, this movie gave me every bit of prequel I need.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll just jump right into the story. Tyler and I tend to spend most of our time on the story, which, I mean, obviously makes sense. That's the biggest part of the movie is the story. But not just that, we tend to focus mostly on the negative things, the things that we didn't like, because I think as reviewers, that's easy. The easiest part to point out is the things that you didn't like. Yeah. So I will go ahead and knock those out real quick so we can just talk about the nice things that we liked about the movie. It meanders a little bit towards the end. It takes a little bit to get going, which is not necessarily unexpected, because even though it exists within this universe is so expansive that these are characters that we've never really seen before. I mean, they do bring in a character here and there, and like you mentioned before, we do know what's going to happen for the most part. So it does it introduces all these characters, and it does take a little bit to get going. But once it gets going, it's fantastic. And that pun that I mentioned earlier, that was so horrible and out of character for the character. Like he hardly talks. Like, I mean, he talks, but he chooses his words so carefully, and then to make such an obvious and stupid fucking pun, that really, really bugged me because it's so out of character.
It didn't bug me. I don't know.
Really?
The more that you kind of complain about it, I can't see that it's out of character, but in the moment, I was too concentrated on the dickhole behind me, but sure. Two, it didn't bother me in the moment. I don't know why.
That being said, I don't want to say that him being in the movie was just to kind of grab people's attention, because there is a scene at the end that is just fucking phenomenal, man. It reminded me a lot of the comic book, that the way the character is in his comic book, especially Vader Down, that story arc. He's so badass in that, and he's the Vader, like the uber powerful villain in that particular scene. It was so fucking cool to watch. So I don't want to say that if you take him out, it doesn't really matter, because I would have still enjoyed the movie, but that scene at the end is just, I mean, I had just such a hard nerd boner, that entire scene. That was phenomenal. So I don't want to necessarily say that you take him out of the movie, you get the same movie, but it did seem to, not just Vader, but they did kind of sprinkle in some people that we know from the original trilogy, and I feel like that was just kind of for people to be like, oh yeah, I know that person, just kind of name recognition sort of thing. And they weren't even that big of characters either.
Yeah, for me though, so there are, I wouldn't say quite a few, but there are, characters that pop up that we're familiar with. Out of all of those, like, there's just one off that I can think of. Two minor characters from A New Hope that show up on a different planet. That was the only one that I wasn't okay with. All the others popping up, I thought it made sense, leading into A New Hope, as much as this movie does, that they would be in it in some regard. There was just two characters that I feel like were fan service that aren't even big, universe characters. Like, they're barely around in A New Hope.
And they did it in such a weird way to bring these characters back, because obviously the actors and actresses that play these characters are older now. Or dead. And so they had to do it with this weird CGI, and it wasn't bad. Like, there was a couple of scenes that I was just like, okay, that's passable. But when you don't need that character in the movie to have the CGI in, it just... I'm trying not to spoil anything, but there's a particular character that he's having a conversation, and you can kind of see him in the glass. And I was like, oh man, that's how they're going to bring this character in, because they can't obviously have the actor come in. And I just thought that was a really cool way to have that character in, because Star Wars fans are going to know who that person is. And then he turns around, and I was like, oh, well, now you just fucked it. Like, you completely ruined it. And then he plays a role later, but you don't have to, it doesn't have to be that person, and it still be fine.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's like Disney has a hard-on for this technology, between like Jeff Bridges and Tron, Michael Douglas and Ant-Man, Tony Stark in Civil War. I'm missing somebody, but
it didn't look, I think it looked better in the other movies.
I thought they did a good job. I mean, we're beating around the bush. Like, he's in it quite a bit. It's Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah.
I think they did a pretty good job with him.
He's just in it too much.
He's, yeah.
And most of it is dialogue between two characters. So you're cutting, and you have a close up of him, and that's all I could think of it the whole time.
I feel like, given his role in A New Hope, like, that character has to be in this movie.
I don't think so.
Like, just the way that it's built up, because
I appreciated that he was, but like I said, if they had just used that one scene where you could see his face off the glass, I think that would have been such a cool little way to put him in this movie.
So would you have rather them done that, or would you have rather them recast it? Because I think that if
no, you don't recast it.
Yeah, if you recast it, then Rogue One doesn't play into A New Hope as well.
Yeah.
Which was what Gareth Edwards was going for. So I don't really have many complaints about this movie, except for what I was going to say was whenever like that character is on screen, it kind of takes you out of it a little bit.
For sure. Now let's kind of go into what we like now that we kind of got rid of the negative. One thing that Tyler briefly broke my balls about the YouTube video that I did. One thing that I mentioned in that particular video is even though the fact that Star Wars war is in the title, there's not a ton of warfare in the movies. This movie felt like Saving Private Ryan meets Star Wars. Like the third act was just full on warfare, and I fucking loved that. The third act was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I agree 100%. Like, just you don't see a lot of the warfare in that. You see a lot of the bigger scope stuff with the Jedi and the Sith, and you see a little bit with Han. But
and that stuff is great, and you get to see a lot of like space battles, but you don't get to see the ground warfare, and you get so much of that in this movie, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want this to sound like it's going to sound like an oversimplification, and it's almost going to sound like an insult, but I do mean this with the highest regard. This movie is an amazing fluffer for A New Hope. Yeah. So I've always loved A New Hope. Like, I mean, who doesn't? Who doesn't love the original trilogy? But whenever we did our Star Wars retrospect, I've kind of said that, A New Hope was my least favorite of the original three. Whenever I watch that movie, I love it, but I always just felt like something minor was missing. And I always just felt like something was left out. And, I want to reiterate, like, of course I've always loved it, and it's always been my introduction to Star Wars. But I just didn't have an intense connection to that movie like I have with like Jedi or with, Empire. And Rogue One changed that for me. It was able to change that. And it was able to add to a movie that is 40 years old, which I think is just incredibly impressive. It adds a lot of depth and a lot of meaning to that movie. And, whenever there's one-off lines about stealing the Death Star plans, like, the story behind that, and it fits so well into A New Hope that I think that that's just a testament to Gareth Edwards. And I don't know who wrote it, but
there was a couple of different people. That's why I didn't bring it up, because there was like 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, I mean, the writers, just so much incredible work there. The movie took that little bit from the scroll that we were talking about and made it into this exciting, complex, and emotionally exhausting story. And, you don't know that this was the story you wanted to hear until they made it, and you see how extremely compelling it could be. So, yeah, I mean, it's done a lot for the Star Wars universe, and I wasn't expecting it to.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just, they kind of gloss over that in A New Hope. It definitely is that. I feel like, not that you dislike it by any means, but I feel like I might appreciate that movie a little bit more, just because for me, when we did that retrospective, I mentioned this a couple of times, out of all the Star Wars movies, I feel like that works the best as a standalone movie, because he may have had these grand plans for this whole universe, but that was the first movie he made, so he kind of had to make it a standalone movie. Empire, it being my favorite Star Wars movie, I love it, obviously, but it definitely hinges. You can't have Empire if you don't have A New Hope. You can't have Empire if you don't have Jedi. So, because, Empire doesn't really end. Jedi just picks up where it left off. So, it's the only movie in the original trilogy that can kind of stand by its own, but it did have that piece missing in it. They kind of gloss over it. They mention it in the crawl, and then they kind of gloss over it in A New Hope, and we've just kind of been waiting. And I didn't expect it to kind of live up to my expectations. I wasn't a huge fan of Godzilla. I had heard he had done, Gareth Edwards had done Monsters, I think it might be called. And I heard that was kind of a cool indie sci-fi monster movie. And it was all right, but I wasn't super impressed. I'd actually seen it right before we went and saw Godzilla, just so I could kind of see his work before we went into that. I wasn't super impressed with that, so I'm not a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit nervous, but I mean, this was exactly what I wanted it to be. There was nothing other than obviously the few things here and there that I mentioned at the beginning. I mean, it was exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, it was insanely on point, and I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. I know you kind of touched on the Vader stuff already. I did have one thing I wanted to say with that, and he has less than 10 minutes of screen time. He's not a gigantic part of this story. He's not at the forefront like he is in the original trilogy, but in the small amount of screen time that he has, like, this movie's able to kind of redeem his villain status. And, it gave me probably my favorite Star Wars moment of all time, I think, in the last few minutes. And
so cool.
Yeah. And, Darth, 20 years ago, if you did like a top 10 villains of all time, Darth Vader would be on that top of that list every time. And I think the prequels kind of diminished that a little bit.
For sure.
And the lasting impression everybody has now is from episode 3 when he's and it's kind of a joke and he's kind of a sappy character to a certain extent now. And he just goes full on villain in this movie. And, he's a bit of a monster. And, I think that kind of sets up what he does in the rest of the, original trilogy just so well. It's just the way that they kind of redeem that character's villain status is amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure. So our next little segment part of the review is we talk about the performances, and it's weird. I'll go ahead and start with my favorite performance, and it's just a voice performance. I thought K2 stole the show for me.
Did he? I thought that he did the mocap too.
Did he really?
I'm pretty sure he did.
Oh, really? I mean,
Alan Tudyk. Alan Tudyk did the K2SO's mocap. Yeah.
I thought he just did the voice.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up afterwards, but I'm pretty sure he did mocap.
Well, either way, he stole the show for me. The Star Wars universes, the movies are unique because some of the more lovable characters aren't human characters, and that kind of continued that tradition. I love R2, but K2 might be one of my favorites. Like, I hate saying that knee-jerk reaction like he's my favorite, but him in this movie, I thought towards the end that maybe they overused him a little bit. They kind of went to that well too many times, but then there's a particular moment at the end. I was like, that was perfect, because you needed to give him that much screen time to make that moment hit as hard as it did. And that just, his character just really worked for me. He's just that sarcastic type of humor. And he reminded me a lot of the way that they use Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, the same type of humor. So I just love that character so much.
Yeah, I wonder if every new Star Wars movie is going to introduce a new droid that we love. Last year it was BB-8 and now it's K2SO. Like, they're on a roll. They
do it in such different ways. It's not they have this cookie cutter formula and they're going to have a new one each movie. BB-8, you have to do, that's all body language.
Yep.
And just like R2, this was straight up just humor, sarcastic humor, and he was trying to be funny. And it just works so well.
Yeah, he was great. He was a great addition to an amazing ensemble. Like, I don't have any complaints about the core cast. I would say that, Forrest Whitaker's character is probably unnecessary in my opinion.
For sure.
Isn't
he in Rebels?
I had heard that. I've never watched Rebels, but
either have I, but I feel like his character's in it, and he was one of those characters that they don't really have that many characters that we know of that they could put in this movie, because is it really a spoiler that I'm not even going to say it just in case somebody freaks out about it. I'd hate to get that email, but I feel like they only had so many characters that are still alive that we know of.
Yeah.
So I felt like they just threw his character in there to be like, oh, here's a guy that you know. Yeah. Even though I never watched Rebels, but.
Yeah, maybe I need to go back and watch Rebels, but I would imagine that if he was a big character on that show, it would have been a bigger deal. So I'm wondering if he was just like in a minor arc at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Either way, like, he's useless in this story. Like, he's kind of like a puzzle piece to get.
He's a plot device.
Yeah, but they could have cut that out, and it would. You talked about maybe Vader not being necessary for this movie. Like, he's definitely not necessary for this movie. They could have circumvented that whole charade.
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't sure if I was going to like Felicity Jones or not. She reminded me a lot of Chris Pratt in Jurassic World, like, judging by that trailer. He was super, super robotic in that trailer, and I wasn't crazy about her in the Rogue One trailer. The I rebel kind of is a cheesy line, and she's a little robotic.
Which wasn't even
even in the movie.
Yeah.
So, which I was happy about, because I thought that was a super cheesy line, but
maybe they cut it out.
She kind of redeemed herself a little bit. There was a couple of scenes. There's a moment, and maybe it's just because I'm a bad person, but she's like crying, and it just smells like it looks like she smelled a really bad fart. But so I mean, that wasn't the best. But I mean, she's obviously a really talented actress, and I like the fact that, like I was talking about with the droid characters, this movie continued that tradition of having really strong droid characters. This continued the tradition of having really strong female characters, which I of course appreciated.
Yeah, no, she was great as well. I don't think that I had the bad feeling that you had going into the movie about her performance, because I thought she was great in the theory of everything. And unless she just was signing up for this for a paycheck, I would imagine that she would turn in a pretty good performance. Typically British people are pretty good at acting. So
yeah.
So,
and maybe I just thought she smelled a bad fart because I had just farted.
Man, that family you split up must have been even more pissed at you.
I was like forcing them out. I was like, if you're gonna be on Twitter during the movie, I'm gonna make you smell my farts. But I thought and I didn't even bother to write his name down because I would just butcher it anyways. The blind Asian guy was fantastic.
Yeah,
those two characters were really great together.
I didn't realize that he's apparently like a huge action star in, I believe, China. But
sure.
in an Asian country, he's like one of their biggest action stars, and I didn't realize that. So, it's not Donnie Yen, is it?
I wouldn't pronounce it right anyway, so I didn't even bother.
Now I got to look it up to redeem myself in case I'm wrong. Oh, I fucking nailed it! It's Donnie Yen.
Oh yeah,
yeah, super hard to pronounce. You're just too lazy to look it up.
That may have played a part in it, but yeah, I thought their chemistry was really great. I mean, they had to be good because that's a big part of the movie towards the end. So that definitely worked. I wasn't crazy about Diego, what's his name, Luna, and Felicity Jones' chemistry. I think that was a little bit forced, but other than that, that's really my only negative as far as the performances were concerned.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed. Like, they don't ever, like, it's not too big of a spoiler, there's not ever really a romance between their characters, but it's kind of hinted at, like, there could be at the end of the movie, and I was really hoping they'd steer clear of that. Like, it's okay to have a movie with a strong female character and a strong male character and not have them fall in love. Like, you don't always have to go the romantic route. So I was hoping they wouldn't go there, and I don't think they had the opportunity to, but had they had a little bit more time, they might have.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely hint at it, but I like the fact that they didn't necessarily force it.
Yeah. Mads Mikkelsen's not in it a ton, but I was very happy to see him not in a villainous role for a change.
Yeah.
On the
there was a little bit of a gray area there.
I mean, he did kind of make the worst weapon of all time, but, Ben Mendelsohn, he was great, but I think that he's kind of falling into that stereotype now. Like, have you ever seen that guy play a good guy?
Yeah. He's amazing in Bloodline.
I couldn't get past a couple episodes of that show. That was pretty boring.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could see that. But, so our next, and we'll kind of end with this before the star rating, is action. And we've kind of touched on it a little bit, so I'll be real brief with it. I mean, I just love the fact that they had much more, kind of the ground troops it reminded me a little bit of the Patriot, kind of like guerrilla warfare, because they come down and there's such a small faction of the rebel army, and they're kind of on their own, doing their own thing. And so I liked that a lot.
Yeah, in A New Hope, they blow up a planet. They blow up Alderaan, and you don't really ever feel for it because you're never on Alderaan. You never meet the people of Alderaan. It's just kind of a plot device that doesn't really carry a lot of weight. And the same can be said for a lot of the casualties in this big war. And this movie, like we keep saying, kind of goes down to the ground level and makes you care about all the rebel lives that are lost and all the lives that were lost on this mission to steal Death Star plans. And I really appreciate that.
You got to see the city. They were in the city, and then it gets destroyed. And that's a really good point.
Yeah, so, the action was amazing. What I thought was one of the biggest testaments I can give to Gareth Edwards and the whole team involved in this movie was that the action in this movie, even just like the TIE fighters and the X-Wings, it feels like the original trilogy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This isn't really action-oriented, but I love that the Rebels have like 70s stashes and 70s hairdos because that's what they looked like in A New Hope, and, at Yavin 4. So it all feels so coherent with that original trilogy, and the action kind of fits in with that as well.
For sure.
You also get to see some dope stuff with Star Destroyers that you've never seen before.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really great action set pieces, especially towards the end. All
right, so star rating. Am I going to see the first Tyler Hunt 5 stars?
No, you're not. It's going to be it's going to be 4.5.
All right, yeah, I'm going to go with 4.5 as well. I'm still waiting for the 5 out of 5 from Tyler Hunt.
Yeah, this movie's great, man. But people asked me all day, which did I like better, this or Force Awakens? And I don't know yet.
That's a tough question.
It's so hard, even though they're both Star Wars movies and they're both, similar enough. It's hard to compare them. Because going into this movie, you kind of know where it's going, you know where it ends, whereas Force Awakens was a completely new story. Well, some people argue it wouldn't. It wasn't. No, it wasn't. But it was a completely new story in this universe that worked for a change. And
it was a prequel that worked.
Yeah, so I don't know yet. I'm gonna have to give it a couple more watches.
Yeah, I almost asked you where does this rank? But it's way too early. I'm assuming you haven't seen it for the second time yet.
No, I'm itching to go see it for the second time. But yeah, I got to let it settle for a little bit.
For sure. I think I saw Force Awakens 3 times in theaters, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll probably see Rogue One. I know for a fact at least one more time, probably 3 times as well.
Dude, if I can find a pirate copy of the last 10 minutes of this movie, I will just watch that shit on loop. The last 10 minutes of Rogue One are just so amazing.
For sure. All right. So we end each episode with kind of asking each other a nerdy question. We take turns asking our favorite blank. Of course, the question changes from episode to episode. It is Tyler's turn. So what is nerd favorite this week?
So I figured, given the Star Wars review, it had to be a nerd favorite Star Wars something. So I'm going to go with what is your favorite Star Wars video game of all time? And there's actually quite a few to choose from. They've been making Star Wars video games for forever. I'll give you a sec to kind of think about what yours is. Mine is one that I believe that I've probably brought up before, but it's back for the Super Nintendo. There was a Return of the Jedi game, and I think they made one for each of the original movies, but Return of the Jedi was the one I owned, and it was a side-scroller. And I don't know, man, it was just a lot of fun. You went through these side-scrolled levels and you got to choose one of 3 characters that you would choose play as for each one, and it kind of changed throughout the game. And they just expanded on that movie so much. So the first level is you're trying to get to Jabba's palace, and you're either Luke, Chewbacca, or Leia, I think. And you're just going through crazy stuff, and there's weapon upgrades as you go through the levels, which is kind of cool. You get to, play with lightsaber. At the end of the game, you have to beat Darth Vader, then you have to beat Emperor Palpatine. There's a few levels where you play as Wicket, the Ewok, which is weird. And I don't know, it's one of those weird Super Nintendo games that took a movie and tried to stretch it out as best they could and add weird levels in that you never see in the movie, just to kind of add some content there. I remember getting stuck on the Rancor level and it just being so hard to beat the Rancor. And I don't know, it was one of like the first few games that I ever beat. And it was just so much fun playing it because it was like at the height of my love for Star Wars when I was a kid. And I don't know, man, it was just a ton of fun. I mean, Return of the Jedi has been my favorite Star Wars movie for forever. And it was kind of just cool playing through that at a young age. So that's mine. What is yours?
So there's a lot of games to choose from, and there's quite a few really good ones, like Knights of the Old Republic would be a great one. And I think that would be kind of the most obvious choice. I'm going to kind of go a little bit more of a personal route. It's not the best game. It's games based on movies are kind of shit on most of the time. Rightfully so, because they're not very good. But Revenge of the Sith, there was a game that came out.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I remember that game.
And the reason, and I never even beat it, the reason that I'm going to use it as my answer is I remember when that came out. I was a senior in high school, and I actually found out right around the same time it was released that we were going to be moving to Vegas. I was living in Indiana at the time, and it was my senior year. We were going to move like almost immediately after graduation. So it was kind of my last hurrah before college with my close group of nerd friends and high school friends and stuff like that. So I remember Revenge of the Sith being like one of the last nights that I got to spend with those guys before I moved to Vegas. And that was a big deal. It was my first midnight showing. But like a week before that movie came out, I think the game came out, and my buddy Dustin was house sitting for his uncle, which so happened to be my next door neighbor, which is just a weird small world thing. And so he was just right next door to me. And so I went that whole week. I went over to his uncle's house, and I basically didn't really spend the night because all I had to do was walk 10 steps to the other house, and I was home. So, but my parents were really cool about it at the time, which they were kind of super protective. So that was kind of weird. Yeah. Maybe they were on vacation or something, because it seems like it would be a weird thing for them to be cool about. But like I just remember like all of us kind of hanging out at that house playing. I think even Resident Evil 4 we played for a while there while we were there, and we rented that game. And I remember one of my buddy Matt went over there. We were like having lightsaber fights, and he just started playing Revenge of the Sith. And I remember getting up early for school the next day, walking out to my car to like warm it up or something. No, it would have had to have been in the summer, so I was just going to school. And he was leaving, and he looked super tired. I was like, "Hey man, you get much sleep?" He's like, "No, I didn't sleep at all. I just beat that whole game." Like he literally started it and stayed up the entire night and beat it right before he went to school. So it was just a really fun night. And I remember not being super impressed by the game, but I'll just have fond memories of the game because of that night. And it was just, it was a really good time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man.
All right. So that is the end of episode 122 of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast. As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google+. Vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. You can comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out our Twitch channel, which Tyler does a weekly stream Monday at 9 p.m. Central. Subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use, we're on it. You can also email us at thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt,
we are the Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
The Force is with us.